Have you ever knelt before the Blessed Sacrament and felt something you couldn't explain? A sudden warmth filling your chest, a tear sliding down your cheek when you weren't even sad, or a deep, unshakable peace, as if the noise of the world had melted away. I thought these moments were just emotions. I thought maybe I was imagining it, until I discovered something that Padre Pio saw. Something that shattered everything I assumed about what really happens when we kneel before the Eucharist. And once I understood, I realized how much I was missing, and how dangerously close I had been to treating the most powerful presence on earth like a routine. Today, I'm going to share what Padre Pio revealed, the unseen reality that unfolds around us during adoration, and why missing it could mean missing one of the greatest transformations God is offering your soul. Stay with me, because the final part of what Padre Pio saw is something so powerful it changed the way I approach every moment before the Blessed Sacrament, and it might just change your life too. For a long time, I thought I was doing everything right. I prayed, I went to Mass. Sometimes I even stayed a few minutes after communion to say thank you. But deep down, I often left feeling the same. No fire, no real change, just a vague sense that maybe God was listening, maybe not. I figured maybe that was just normal. Maybe I wasn't holy enough to feel anything special. But then, by what I can only call a divine nudge, I stumbled across the writings and testimonies of Padre Pio, and what he described about what actually happens around the Blessed Sacrament hit me like lightning. He wasn't just guessing. Padre Pio saw the invisible world. He lived between two realities, the seen and the unseen. And what he saw during adoration wasn't silence, it wasn't emptiness, it wasn't just bread sitting on an altar. It was a battlefield, it was a cathedral of light, it was a place where angels gathered. Souls were transformed, and Christ himself stepped forward to touch the hearts of the faithful, whether they knew it or not. That's when I realized it wasn't that God wasn't working. It was that I had been standing at the doorway of a miracle and never stepped through. What Padre Pio revealed showed me why some people leave adoration changed forever, and why others leave without ever realizing what they just missed. And it all starts with the first mistake. One that I didn't even know I was making. Let's go there now. The first and most common mistake is assuming that nothing is happening during adoration unless we can feel it. Padre Pio warned that spiritual blindness is not the absence of miracles, but the absence of faith. He taught that the Blessed Sacrament is never alone, never empty, never ordinary. While the world rushes by outside, while our minds are filled with distractions, something unimaginable is unfolding right before us. He revealed that every time a soul kneels before the Eucharist, even if the church is empty by human eyes, it is not empty by heaven's eyes. An invisible army of angels gathers around the Blessed Sacrament, forming a shield of worship so dense, so radiant, that the sanctuary itself becomes a battleground of grace. Padre Pio saw them. Countless angels prostrate before the host, their faces radiant with reverence. He described the space surrounding the Eucharist as alive with light, vibrating with unseen adoration. But most people miss it because they expect spiritual experiences to come with feelings, with emotions, with dramatic signs. He taught that the most profound realities are often the quietest ones, hidden behind the veil of the senses, accessible only to the eyes of faith. Those who approach the Blessed Sacrament expecting fireworks might leave disappointed, but those who kneel with trust even in the silence and dryness are standing in the midst of the greatest mystery on earth. This mistake, the expectation that we must feel something to believe it, is one of the devil's subtlest tricks, because it shifts our focus from God to ourselves. Instead of adoring Christ simply because he is there, we start measuring the success of our prayer by our sensations, our emotions, our experiences. Padre Pio would say that to demand feelings during adoration is like standing before a king and complaining about the lack of entertainment. The king's very presence should be enough. The angels do not need to feel anything to adore perfectly. They simply see and respond with awe. And, through his visions, Padre Pio urged us to learn from them. He described how during Mass and adoration, the angels crowd so closely around the altar that the space becomes thick with their presence, a cathedral of light so bright it would blind mortal eyes if we could see it. This is what we step into. When we walk into a chapel, no matter how small, no matter how plain, every adoration is a participation in the eternal worship of heaven. The Blessed Sacrament is not a symbol. It is Christ himself, veiled in humility. Just as he once came hidden in the helpless body of an infant, so now he comes hidden in the small white host, waiting for souls who will recognize him without needing to see, feel, or touch. Padre Pio insisted that the spiritual world does not operate on the economy of emotions, but on the economy of faith, and that the soul who persists in adoring even when they feel nothing is offering one of the purest forms of love. He compared it to the faith of the Blessed Virgin at the foot of the cross. Mary felt no joy on Calvary. She did not feel victorious or comforted. She felt the sword of sorrow pierce her heart, yet she stood firm, believing even when all seemed lost. And it is this kind of faith that most pleases God during adoration. The faith that says, "I believe. You are here," even when the heart feels cold, distracted, or empty. Many souls abandon adoration because they fall into the trap of emotionalism. They sit before the host, waiting for a feeling to validate their prayer. When no feeling comes, they think they have failed. Worse, they think God has failed them. Padre Pio's visions remind us that the opposite is true. The soul who kneels in faith without consolation is often receiving even greater graces than the one who is flooded with sweetness, because God's greatest works are done in hiddenness, in the secret places of the heart, where neither human eyes nor emotions can reach. Imagine what would happen if more souls understood this. Imagine churches filled with faithful adorers who stayed, not because they felt something, but because they knew who was there. Padre Pio believed it would transform the world, because every minute spent before the Blessed Sacrament, even in dryness, even in distraction, is a minute spent under a downpour of invisible grace. He warned that the devil works hard to convince souls that their prayer is useless if they feel nothing. But faith tells the opposite story. Faith clings to the truth that Christ is there, body, blood, soul, and divinity in the host, whether or not we feel a single thing. Every second before him matters. Every visit, no matter how poor or distracted, is an act of love that echoes in eternity. This first mistake, then, is not small. It is deadly. It robs us of the treasures Christ wants to pour into our souls. It convinces us to abandon the very fountain of grace, because the water looks still on the surface. Padre Pio's life is proof that the saints did not rely on their feelings to adore. They relied on truth, and the truth is simple, unshakable, eternal. He is here. If you have ever knelt before the Eucharist and felt nothing, you were standing closer to heaven than you realized. If you have ever prayed in dryness and thought your prayer was wasted, it rose to the throne of God as incense. If you have ever wondered if your presence before the Blessed Sacrament mattered, know this: it matters more than you will ever know this side of eternity, and it is precisely those visits, the ones without fireworks, the ones offered in faith alone, that are crowned most highly in heaven. The second great mistake is treating adoration as a passive experience rather than an active offering of the heart. Padre Pio warned that many approach the Blessed Sacrament with good intentions, but without the living flame of intention in their soul. They kneel, they look, they wait. but they do not truly offer themselves. And so, though they are present in body, they are absent in spirit. The encounter that could have transformed them passes by like rain falling on stone. Adoration is not simply about being in the right place at the right time. It is about giving. True adoration is an act of the will, a conscious offering of the heart to the hidden Christ. Padre Pio often said that even the smallest act of love offered with sincerity during adoration can outweigh hours of distracted presence. Because what matters is not merely occupying a space near the host, but uniting our soul with his in faith, love, and surrender. He taught that every moment in adoration is a conversation, even if no words are spoken. God speaks in silence, and the soul must answer in silence too. Not with noise, not with endless petitions, but with a heart that says, "Here I am, Lord, I come to adore you." This interior disposition, more than any words, opens the floodgates of grace. The mistake many make is believing that simply sitting there is enough, that by enduring a holy hour without attention or engagement, they have somehow done their duty. But Padre Pio warned that such passivity can harden the soul rather than soften it. He compared it to sitting near a fire without ever reaching out to warm oneself. The fire is there, blazing and alive, but if the soul does not stretch toward it, if it does not open itself, it remains cold. True adoration demands a response. It demands that the soul, however weak or distracted, continually turns itself toward Christ with acts of faith, hope, and love. These acts can be as simple as whispering silently, "I believe you are here," or as profound as simply lifting the heart to him without words at all. Padre Pio often practiced what he called the prayer of presence, being completely aware that Christ was present, loving him with every beat of his heart, without demanding anything in return. There is another danger in passive adoration, the temptation to use the time merely for personal comfort or emotional consolation. Padre Pio warned that if we seek Christ only for what we can feel, we have not truly adored. Real love adores Christ for who he is, not for what he gives. And so, even when adoration feels dry, even when distractions bombard the mind, even when weariness weighs down the body, the soul must gently return again and again to the simple, burning truth. He is here, and he is worthy of all love. To approach the Blessed Sacrament passively is to miss the invitation Christ offers at every moment, to enter into his heart, to be transformed by his gaze, to become one with the mystery of his love. But to approach actively, with even the smallest acts of intention, is to allow that invitation to take root and bear fruit beyond anything we could imagine. Padre Pio knew that many souls feel intimidated by adoration, believing they must perform great spiritual feats to please God, but he taught the opposite. It is the simple offering of presence, the childlike glance of love, the humble act of surrender that moves the heart of Christ most deeply. Active adoration is not complicated. It is the steady, quiet decision to give him everything, moment by moment, whether or not we feel capable, whether or not we feel anything at all. Those who correct this second mistake, who come not only to be present but to give themselves, discover a hidden river of grace flowing through their lives. They become more sensitive to God's voice, more strengthened against temptation, more deeply rooted in peace. Their time before the Blessed Sacrament stops being an obligation and becomes the very breath of their soul. Padre Pio's life testified to this truth. His days were marked by simple, fierce acts of love during adoration, acts no one else could see, but which heaven treasured more than all the grand actions of the world. Through him, we are reminded that adoration is not a spectator event. It is a sacrifice of the heart, offered quietly, invisibly, but with immeasurable power before the throne of God. The third mistake is neglecting the hidden spiritual gateways within the home. The doors, windows, and entry points were unseen. Influences can pass. Padre Pio warned that the enemy does not often storm into our lives dramatically, but rather slips quietly through the unguarded thresholds we ignore. Many faithful protect their living rooms, bless their bedrooms during difficult nights, or sprinkle holy water when fear arises, but few think to guard the very places where daily movement between worlds occurs. The door through which a loved one walks into the house, the window left open to the night. These are not just physical gaps, but spiritual ones as well. Padre Pio explained that entryways symbolize permission. What passes through a door has been permitted access. He taught that when doors and windows are left spiritually unguarded, they can become points of vulnerability where negative forces whisper into the home unnoticed. Over time, these small openings, if left unattended, can create an atmosphere of heaviness, disquiet, or even spiritual confusion. It does not always manifest in obvious ways, but through slow, almost imperceptible shifts, a rise in family tensions, restlessness in prayer, a subtle dulling of spiritual hunger. To combat this, Padre Pio urged a simple but powerful practice, consciously blessing every doorway and window with holy water, speaking a prayer of protection over them. This act was not about superstition, but about reclaiming authority over the home, dedicating every inch to God's peace. He believed that when we actively bless these thresholds, we establish spiritual boundaries that the enemy respects. It is not enough to wish for protection. Protection must be invited, claimed, and guarded through action. This teaching reveals a vital truth about spiritual life. Grace builds upon our cooperation. Doors that are physically locked yet spiritually abandoned remain vulnerable. But doors, consciously marked with prayer and faith, stand under a shield far stronger than any human security system. Padre Pio's own life was marked by constant vigilance, and he wanted every believer to understand that small daily acts of spiritual warfare are as essential as any great battle fought by saints. They are the battles hidden in the everyday, fought quietly at the thresholds of ordinary life. The fourth mistake is failing to bless the place of rest, the bed where one surrenders all control each night. Padre Pio warned that sleep is not merely a physical need, but a deeply spiritual state where the soul becomes especially vulnerable. During the hours of sleep, the mind relaxes, the body weakens, and defenses lower, creating an opportunity both for divine grace and for subtle attacks from unseen forces. Yet most people move through their nighttime routines without any thought for spiritual protection. They lock their doors, turn off their lights, set alarms, but leave their souls exposed. Padre Pio taught that just as we bless our meals and our travels, we must also sanctify our rest. The bed, the sheets, the very space around where one sleeps should be regularly blessed with holy water. It is not enough to pray in the morning or only when troubles arise. Night after night, the act of blessing the bed should become a sacred ritual, simple yet powerful, like lighting a candle against the dark. A few drops of holy water, a brief prayer asking for protection and peace, can turn an ordinary bed into a fortress of grace. He shared that restless nights, unexplainable fears, disturbing dreams, and even chronic insomnia can sometimes have roots not merely in natural causes, but in spiritual vulnerability. The enemy prefers to work under cover of darkness when the soul's conscious guard is lowered. But those who remember to sanctify their sleep, who entrust their rest to God's care each night, build an invisible shield around themselves that evil cannot easily penetrate. This daily habit not only offers protection, but creates an environment of lasting peace. Over time, homes where beds are blessed regularly feel tangibly different, lighter, safer, warmer. Sleep becomes more than physical restoration, it becomes a spiritual renewal. In his own ministry, Padre Pio emphasized that it is often in small, hidden disciplines like this that the deepest victories of faith are won. Through a nightly act of blessing, The believer claims the silent hours for God and refuses to allow the enemy any foothold in their most vulnerable moments. The fifth mistake is failing to actively bless and protect the most vulnerable members of the household, especially children, the sick, and the elderly. Padre Pio warned that in a world filled with unseen spiritual dangers, it is not enough to pray silently for loved ones. Physical acts of blessing, especially with holy water, are needed to shield those who cannot fully defend themselves. Many faithful believe that their prayers alone are enough, but they forget that God's graces often flow more powerfully through visible signs and intentional acts of faith. Children, in particular, are highly sensitive to spiritual realities. Their innocence makes them more perceptive to both good and evil influences, yet also leaves them exposed unless they are deliberately covered in prayer and sacramental grace. Padre Pio encouraged parents to bless their children every night with holy water, tracing the sign of the cross gently on their foreheads. He taught that this small act plants seeds of divine protection that can grow into lifelong spiritual strength. Elderly family members, weakened by age or illness, also benefit greatly from this blessing. Their vulnerability is not only physical, but spiritual, as fears and loneliness can open subtle doors to discouragement or despair. Regularly blessing them reaffirms their dignity and surrounds them with hope. Neglecting this responsibility, even unintentionally, allows cracks to form in the household's spiritual armor. Evil does not need loud invitations. It often slips through moments of forgetfulness and spaces left unguarded. But when a family makes blessing a habit, something changes invisibly but decisively. A spiritual wall is built, prayer by prayer, drop by drop of holy water, over time forming an almost tangible barrier of peace and grace. Padre Pio emphasized that these blessings are not rituals of fear, but acts of love. Each blessing, even whispered in the rush of bedtime or amid the busyness of daily life, sends ripples of light into the soul of the one blessed. In families where this practice becomes routine, peace deepens, conflicts lessen, and a sacred bond forms that evil finds much harder to penetrate. A home filled with daily blessings becomes, in truth, a small sanctuary of God's presence. Now that the 5 critical mistakes have been revealed, the time has come to act. Knowing these truths is not enough if they remain only ideas tucked away in the mind. Padre Pio constantly taught that spiritual protection requires real steps, real practices lived out daily in faith and devotion. It starts with something very simple yet incredibly powerful. Use the holy water you already have. Do not let it sit untouched in a drawer or forgotten on a shelf. Take it in your hands tonight. Bless yourself. Bless your home. Bless your family. With intention and a prayerful heart, if you do not have holy water, do not wait another day. Go to your nearest church. Ask a priest for blessed water. Bring it home as a sign that you take seriously the unseen battles fought every day for your soul and the souls of those you love. Then begin making it part of your life. Make blessing your entryways a quiet weekly ritual. Mark your doors and windows with faith, as ancient families marked their homes during times of danger, trusting in divine protection. Do not forget your place of rest. Each night before sleep, take a moment to bless your bed, your room, and yourself. Invite God's peace into the hours when you are most vulnerable, and above all, remember those entrusted to your care, your children, your spouse, your aging parents, your friends going through dark times. They need more than your concern. They need your prayers turned into action, your love turned into visible signs of blessing. Nothing here requires dramatic effort. It requires faithfulness. A few seconds of intention can create a lifetime of spiritual shelter. Padre Pio saw that the smallest acts of faith done consistently build walls of grace around families that no enemy can easily break through. Tonight, can be the beginning. Tonight can be the first drop in what he called the cascade of grace. It starts with a decision, a prayer, a single blessing made with a heart full of faith. The Lord is ready to respond. Heaven is waiting for you to open the door.